Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's well. I know there'll be some of you patching in and you were holding this in your diary when I announced it a couple of days ago, but obviously we are live streaming now to our Facebook group, our Facebook page, our Twitter account, the YouTube account. So please do pop and say hello as you come on board this afternoon. But I'm delighted and really excited because I've missed her a lot, actually. And this is the most I've had all year with you, apart from January, when we saw each other for coffee. But for those of you that don't know this lovely lady, it's Lily Shippen of Lily Shippen Recruitment, and one of EPAA's new partners. But I will start off by saying about you, Lily, you are one of the people I would trust the most in the recruitment industry. And I think I've got some kind of, because I've worked in it for 7.5 years as an EA, I know a lot about that industry, and I kind of went to war a bit with recruiters a couple of years ago in a very public way. And we can talk about some of where it kind of goes wrong later in the interview. But having got to know you via the Manchester PA network and meeting up, you're just one of the most genuine people who runs a recruitment agency I've ever met. So thank you for joining us.
So kind, thank you. I can't believe January when we actually met. It feels like a long time ago.
And I remember because you were down in London, I'd been up in Manchester, and I'd got the train back down and met you in London before you went back to Manchester. Yeah. And then literally, I think it was about 6 weeks later that COVID hit, and obviously we were thrown into lockdown. So obviously, let's go straight into that first before we talk about your whole career and how you come to set up your own recruitment agency. Obviously, recruitment was hit really hard, and actually, you know, I joined Hayes at the start of a recession, and recruiters do get hit hard. What was it like kind of when they made the announcements that we were going into a national lockdown, COVID was here? What happened with Lily Shippen Recruitment?
So funnily enough, and couldn't write this, but the day that Boris actually told everyone to go and work from home was the day that we moved into a double-sized office from what we were previously in. So we were I remember being sat in the new office. I sent everyone else home because they'd been traveling to London, and I had a feeling that kind of COVID was going to become more of a thing. But I remember being sat with Emma Hulbert, who works with me, and every single job just got put on hold that day. And it was like, you know, I just had no idea of what was going to happen. You know, I spoke to my friend Holly, who's got an events company, a week before. She was saying everything had been put on hold or been pulled. And then I thought, oh, we're fine. Like, we've got some things at second stage interview. I remember we had like a really busy day that we were due to have so many interviews that week, and literally everything got put on hold. And from that day, we didn't have a single job for 4.5 months. So it was crazy. And it's weird to think back now to the days that we didn't have jobs on, or it's quiet at the moment, but to not have anything was really tough. And it was also tough for people, you know, seeing what was happening. It was like a kind of big scramble to, you know, I was speaking to friends that had been through recessions before, and they were saying, make redundancies, get rid of your team right now. And I'm thinking, what? You know, it was bonkers. And obviously then navigating the furlough scheme and all those things that happened, it feels so strange to think about now, because obviously we're so kind of far ahead, or, you know, in a way. So yeah, it was a strange time to start off with.
And did you, I mean, I know obviously we know lots of small business owners, and small business was hit really hard and fast, not just recruitment, but a lot. Was there any moment in that kind of first 48 hours of those announcements thinking, I've lost my business, that's it?
Yeah, I've got a photo on my phone of I think it was my birthday that week, and I just sat and cried and just thought, you know, this is it, like we're absolutely screwed. And there were times, you know, over the last 6 months as well, where I've kept going every single day, but there's been times where I've thought, am I mental? I have business at the end of this. And I think at the start it just felt like we were really up against it, whereas now I feel so much more positive, because, you know, we've got hopefully a brighter 2021, and, you know, the vaccine and various other things. But yeah, there was certainly times where I thought, you know, this is it.
Yeah, and I think I can definitely relate to that. And every small business owner
Yeah.
I've kind of chatted to through this time. But I will say what started to lift me out of some of that initial shock was actually you and Holly Moore of Make Events. And it was all your social media coming through, how honest you both were about how you felt. So I think a lot of business owners related to that. But also when, it was like, well, we're still getting up at 5 a.m. And I came on that webinar, which I know some of our members did, on the 5 a.m. club. So quickly explain the 5 a.m. little club you had going in the lockdowns.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably my biggest savior, actually, and Holly as a friend as well. But yeah, we kind of, I think it was maybe a month or so into lockdown. I think it was around April time, maybe. We did, Holly organised a conference with Rachel Hollis, which we all attended virtually, and she set up a group of I suppose events professionals that all attended, and we did it on a Saturday together. And then one of the ladies that did that event was a lady called Juliet, and she posted about this 5 a.m. club, which I'd never even really heard about before, because I think, it's Robin Sharma that talks about it, and there's a whole book about it and what have you. And I remember just messaging Holly saying, should we do this? And she was like, yeah, I was gonna do it. Should we do it together? So we set up a WhatsApp group, and the three of us, we still did it. We did a gym class together virtually today, and that has been such a blessing. So I think it's just having that structure, that accountability. It's like a race to get out of bed in the morning to say that you're up, because I don't want to let the team down, which is mental. And there were times where I'm thinking, oh, I'm up, but then I'm like, I'll go back to bed. But generally, it's been so good to just have that time before work, and to have a bit of thinking time before emails start coming through.
Yeah, and I think initially through lockdown, a lot of EAs and PAs said to me as well that, oh, great, we don't have to do the commute, we don't have to stick on the office corporate wear, we can be at home a bit more, we can do this because we're saving all this time. And I remember saying to some of our members, look, this will start to get a little bit tough in about 8 weeks' time. That's what my reckoning is. And I think it did for a lot of people. The first month, I think it was a bit of a novelty because we've never been through this before.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I was actually missing office life. We've got office space down in Red Hill at Raven House, and there's lots of small business owners and entrepreneurs there. You kind of bounce off them in that building, seeing people on your way, because I used to do the couple of mile walk with my backpack on, and then suddenly it's, I actually do really miss that. And although it was all virtual, and that was great as well, it still isn't the same, is it, than being in person?
No, I think it depends on the type of person that you are as well. And I definitely get my energy off other people. And, I thrive off being busy and the pressure and things happening. And even this week, quiet, and I'm finding that mentally difficult again, because it feels a lot slower, and I certainly think that that's been the case throughout this whole period. And we all talked about wanting that flexibility, which I certainly think will still be desirable for a lot of people, but will it be that people want to work 5 days a week? I don't think it necessarily will for a lot of people. I miss the office so much. There's only so much being at home you can do, and then you start cleaning and the rest of it.
I know people's houses have never been so clean. Our local charities are please stop bringing bags of clothes down.
There's only so many clear outs that you can do.
Because literally all the charity bins at the recycling centre, they've got special bins for different items. They're all absolutely full. All the charity shops, they came back after the first lockdown around here, and they couldn't even get in the front doors. They were piled high with bags of clothes, shoes and handbags and things like that. So clearly a lot of people did put some of it to good use. But actually you, as a business owner, I think you hopped on things quite quickly, and you were really there for the market and the profession. So you came and spoke at our EPAA virtual conference, and that was only a couple of weeks into lockdown. You ran a series of webinars on a variety of topics. You put out a guide, was it a guide on how to hire PAs? And do you want to talk us through some of the stuff you've done with your recruitment agency?
Sure. Yeah. So I think when it happened, I think the first week I remember speaking to Emma and just saying, we've got no jobs, we're not going to have any jobs. The only thing that we can do right now is help people and be there and hope that people remember us in the long run. So that's really been our kind of strategy, if you like, for this year, is to not just, you know, be that recruiter that just comes back when there's jobs there, that we've actually been there to help the community. So we launched a WhatsApp group and a LinkedIn group when it kind of first, I think it was probably the first week, and that was we called it PAs Together, and it was just a community for people to, you know, to support one another. And it very much kind of evolved as time went on, and it became, you know, people posting jobs or people kind of asking for referrals within, you know, and also asking around like PPE at the time, you know, when everyone was navigating that. So that was really positive. And then we launched the podcast. I think that was probably halfway through the year, and that had been something that I'd been thinking about, you know, earlier and before this all happened, but it was just one of those things that I never had the time to do. So suddenly I did. And then, so we've launched, or we've kind of produced quite a lot of content. So we've tried to, you know, really add value to the market. So we've produced like a 12-page guide about how to hire your perfect PA, so that, you know, employers that might be looking to do it directly right now, at least, you know, if we could add our knowledge, then, you know, hopefully that would, you know, would work, and that went really well. And we've got one coming out about the role of the evolving EA, which we're going to be doing from January, and we've got a webinar around that as well. So we just really try to kind of do as much as possible to, you know, to support people and, you know, to kind of to remain there, I suppose, because, you know, there was not much else that we could do at the time. And also it was really difficult because we were having so many people coming to us that had unfortunately been made redundant. And at that time, we couldn't help them. You know, we had no to speak to them about. So at least we felt that if, you know, if people were asking us questions, we could direct in a way and say, you know, have a look at this or go to this person, rather than just, we'll put you on our books, which no one wanted to hear at that time.
And that was the difference, I think, between your company to some other recruiters I saw. And now, obviously, the recruiters still have to make money. You know, not every company in the UK got support from the government packages. I mean, in fact, a lot of us did miss out on it. But others jumped down other monetary routes very quickly that I wouldn't necessarily have said they were a good fit for. But you kind of took out all that and were like, what can we do in the meantime? And here's this and this, and pointing them in the right direction. And I definitely, I loved your little logo update, Lily, for the long term, because, you know, I think people, I'll never forget what you've done for the profession during this time. And the fact it wasn't, you know, even though, you know, profits had totally been wiped out, you were still putting a hand out there to the profession, trying to help as much as possible. And actually, you've done a bit of a pivot of your business in this time as well, haven't you? You've taken on new people, you've got the podcast, and actually, I have to say, there's been this rush of PA podcasts that have come out, and yours is my favourite. I listen to it when I'm taking my dog out for a walk. I put it in my ears and I'm off. I really, really like what you've put out so far on that.
I really enjoyed it, actually, because I think, because I'm not involved in the day-to-day recruitment as much anymore, and I'm more kind of marketing and strategy, I miss speaking to people. I miss doing the candidate registrations and that side of things, which you know, actually doing the podcast was, I loved it, because it was speaking to people that actually then it reignited my passion for, you know, for those types of roles, and actually hearing about how they got to where they were. So it was really good. But I think it was different for us, you know, as opposed to kind of your larger recruitment firms that did furlough everyone. I couldn't furlough myself, so I had no. I was like, I may as well do this.
I thought I'd furloughed myself off EPAA, and I was like, that doesn't quite happen when you're the business owner.
Probably not.
And that's all you can do, is kind of pivot. And like you said, it was going into the strategy, doing things like we wanted to rebrand it. Well, you know, I spoke to you in January. I wanted to overhaul EPAA, you know, in terms of the brand, the website, all that stuff that's on this list you really want to do, but there's never quite enough time to sit down and create it all and manufacture it all and
Yeah.
and kind of go through that whole process. But you've been working on your website as well and updating bits and pieces, and like you said, looking at strategy.
Yeah, so we're moving our website over actually at the moment, and we have focused all this time on obviously the marketing, but also making sure that all of our procedures are like up to date, and our systems they've never been better, so that next year we're in a position to be able to hopefully service the market even more than we were doing last year. But I think it's what I have been really passionate about is not to there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that have been made redundant, as we say, or are not in great financial situations. But not even that. I think for me, there were so many things that were coming to my mind, and I think everyone was thinking, you've got to pivot, and I was thinking, okay, we could do maybe this, we could do that, but then it just didn't. There were a few ideas that we nearly went with, and they just didn't sit 100% with me. And so I didn't want to look like the recruiter that was, like you say, trying to make money or trying to kind of, trying to charge PAs or EAs. I think that, we obviously make money in a different way. And it's just, I think we had to be just so careful about that. So I'm glad that we did pivot, but we didn't pivot too much that, hopefully we're still known for what we do.
Well, it was actually you and Holly, and I know Holly was big on the word pivot, and she's done such a fantastic job of overhauling and adding to that business, and she now runs a couple of businesses. But it was really like, actually, now I can get on with what I wanted to do, and it is a big overhaul to. A big piece of work to overhaul your brand and come back with a new logo and a new website. And like you said, we kind of pulled that old website down piece by piece and then built it back up again so that everything's smooth running. I mean, we're still early days with our new brand, as you know, so we're still fine-tuning. Thank you. We're fine-tuning a little bit, bits and pieces, but the members seem very happy. Hi, Josh. Lovely to see you on this afternoon. Hi, Josh. But looking to 2021, and what are kind of your thoughts and opinions? What do you think, kind of, because we're sort of in mini lockdowns until about March by the looks of things. What are you thinking and feeling for next year?
So we feel really positive as a team. So I'm not sure whether everyone knows, but we service mainly Manchester and London as locations. So Victoria, who joined us during lockdown, she covers the London market, and then Emma covers Manchester. So I think that gives us quite a good overview of both locations, because especially at the moment, we're still in tier 3 in Manchester. So if we were just Manchester centric, it's quite hard to know what the rest of the country is kind of looking to do. So I think from speaking to clients, we've spoken to a lot of clients already that have got roles approved ready for like Q1 next year. So we feel that companies will be hiring. We've had really strong stronger October, November. December is naturally a quiet month anyway. I think that companies will pick up again in Q1. So I think that it's going to be obviously specific to certain industries still. Yet we've seen a lot of movement or a lot of hiring within like telecoms, accountancy, legal, quite a lot of private payrolls coming through. So I think that will continue. But I also think there probably will be more of a temp market probably around April onwards next year. And I think that recruitment will come back. It always does. It's just obviously a bit of a waiting game at the moment.
Yeah, and something I mentioned to you just before we came on is that there is a bit of a trend that people who have been working during lockdown, they're getting itchy feet, aren't they, Lily? They're kind of like, I know I'm lucky to have a job at the moment, loads of people are losing, but actually I really do want to move my career on as soon as the economy starts to come back a bit.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of movement. I think I'd probably say that people will start to move from spring onwards, I would imagine. I think it will be once people start to get back into offices, they kind of, test the water to see, like, am I really happy or not happy? But we have got our salary survey out at the moment, and I looked at the results last night, and I think it was around 60% of people had said that they would consider a new role next year, which is quite high.
That is, that is high. Yeah.
So I think that there will be a lot of movement from companies hiring and releasing new roles if they've had to make redundancies this year. But also I think there'll be movement because people will be moving roles as well.
And that's the thing. I mean, you actually made a couple of new hires during the lockdown. So you said you've got a new person for London now.
Yeah.
You've got a new PA, the fabulous Ria. She's fantastic. Yeah. I've loved dealing with her both. I can't wait to meet her face to face.
Yeah.
But it just goes to kind of show that people have still been starting to hire. Small businesses have as well, where they've been able to. And I mean, that's all part of you looking at the long term and knowing that market's going to come back.
Definitely. I think, Ria joined in July, and I think at the time we didn't have any jobs. And I remember speaking, I think I spoke to the accountants actually, and I said, I know we've not got any pipeline, but I really need someone. And I knew that I needed someone to help me at that time to get those projects that were in my mind, to get them done. And she's been absolutely amazing. She's off this week and I'm missing her so much. But and then Victoria actually had contacted me through LinkedIn. She'd been unfortunately made redundant, and we had a conversation. I didn't have a role in mind at that time, and just absolutely loved her. Like, the gut feeling was just so good when I met her, and I just thought someone like her is never going to normally come up. She's not going to be around. If I don't make a move, then I think I will regret it. So it was a both hires were quite nerve-wracking because it wasn't a normal hire in terms of we had the numbers to kind of be able to do it, but actually they've both been so great. And I would say actually our culture has never been stronger, even though we're not in an office together. So
and what is the plan to go back to the office when you're allowed to? Is that what you're hoping to do?
Yeah, so we're budgeting for being back in some kind of office for both locations mid next year. So we were in like co-working offices, and we're not going back anytime soon, but we are trying to kind of, obviously when lockdowns aren't happening, we're trying to spend some time together, even if it's once a week or what have you, in town. But I think that it'll probably be the second half of next year for us, and we've kind of tried to focus on people rather than those overheads that on the office space. And I think that was the tricky thing as well, wasn't it, for a lot of small business owners? They did have this kind of share space or separate offices, and it was like, wow, what do we do now? I mean, my friend's business, she's just been landed with her electricity bill, even though they haven't been there since April. Which was higher than what she thought. And there's and that's the tough thing you couldn't plan for being a small business owner. If you had that office space and you've suddenly been forced out of it, it was kind of like, oh, well, I assume all that's going to stop, but those payments still had to be made. And I think a lot of people didn't realise that, who don't own businesses. It was tough. So very quickly, there's another strand of your business, which is LS Virtual. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Yeah, so I set up LS Virtual at the start of this year, not knowing what was to come. And that came about because we had so many clients last year coming to us saying, I need an EA, I need someone that's senior, but I don't need them in the office full time, or I don't need them in an office, and they can be based wherever. So what we were finding was that, it kind of almost, some of those clients didn't necessarily want to kind of go down the permanent hire route. It wasn't necessarily that they wanted someone temp either. They wanted someone on more of like a long-term basis. So basically, I set up LS Virtual as a separate offering, in that we have a team of in-house executive assistants that support clients remotely. So it's, we're there to as the middleman, if you like, but we also hire experienced EAs. And I think that it's been a massive learning curve, to be honest. And I think I've forgotten of how hard it is to start a business again, because we're 5 years down the line with recruitment, and it's been really interesting. But I think it's also the word VA, there's a lot of people that have become VAs recently, and it's become a lot popular. But I think it's also a really broad term, because you get a VA that specializes in marketing, or you can have someone that's, that is an EA. There's so many different things. And I think from a client perspective, we found that a challenge as well, is that, they know that they need help, but they don't know necessarily what they need. If that makes sense. So that's what we set up at the start of this year, and that's a massive focus for next year. And it's gone well, but it's been a learning curve.
Yeah, I bet it has, and I think you'll see a lot of small business owners turning to that service for you next year, because I'm in various I've been telling the EPAMs, I'm in various small business owner groups, and they've all been pivoting their businesses, turning things around, adding new streams, and a lot of them are starting to hire VAs, and that's where most of the requests are coming from at the moment, is small business owners. I mean, in one group I'm in at the moment of small business owners, there's literally at least a request every day. Wow. And because suddenly these small business owners are kind of, oh God, I can't, my business is going crazy. And then it's like, I need someone now, which I think that's predominantly where it's going to get very, very busy on that part of the market, especially once we get past Christmas and New Year.
Definitely.
So let's talk a little bit about your career journey, because I ask everyone I interview. So you came out of school at 16, did you? Or did you do A-levels, go to uni?
So I did sixth form, but I was not good at school. So I remember, I did my A-levels. I could not tell you what I got at A-level, but I know it wasn't good. So I finished A-levels and then went traveling on my own for 6 months while all my friends went to uni. I was the only one in my year that didn't. And then I moved to London on a whim and literally fell into recruitment, like I think most recruiters do, and went to work for Robert Walters when I was 19. So I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into, but it was such a great experience. And I was so lucky to work that I was, I was working with experienced people, but also a lot of my peers had been to uni, and I think I just blagged it, to be honest. I don't really know how I got in, but I was there for just under 3 years, and I did love it, and I did support recruitment for Robert Walters as well, and got to work on amazing accounts. I was financial services, so I used to work with Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, private equity businesses. It was so great, but just reached that point where I wanted to do my own thing, and I wanted to, I suppose I felt like with Robert Walters, I was always hiding behind a big name, and the clients know me, and I would put my neck on the line for people, but I was only ever able to do that to a certain extent. So that's why I wanted to have, a small business that I was able to put my reputation on the line, and that's, how it happened.
And I understand that as well, because I worked for Hayes for so long, and I became known as part of that Hayes brand. In fact, a client said to me, Vic, if we rip you open, there's going to be blue blood and lots of H's spilling out. And I was like, oh, I didn't know if to take it as a compliment or not. But I totally get that, because it's really fast paced working at the big recruiters. Everything's happening really, really quickly. And of course, there were really good markets as well to be recruiting in. Back then. And you're actually from a really entrepreneurial family, aren't you? So I guess it was natural that you were going to come and set up on your own at one point or another.
Yeah, it's weird, because I never thought that I actually would. And when I set up the business, I decided it over dinner with my mum one night, and then I'd handed my notice in a month later. It wasn't, I think a lot of people have a business plan and they're getting ready in the background, whereas I'm quite spontaneous as a person and kind of do things on a whim. So that's what happened. But yeah, my mum has a promotional merchandise business, and she's had that for 25 years. And my dad, they work together. So my dad had a print management business. So I suppose I'd grown up like knowing, when we were on holiday, it was like that, it was still work was happening. And it was, the kind of, I suppose the way it is of having a business, that you don't switch off. that's what I grew up with. But I remember saying to my mum, she said, what do you want to do? Because I was at that point where I knew I wanted to do something. And I said, well, I want to have my own business, but I'm too young. So I was only 22. And she was like, no, you're not too young, just do it. So I'm so lucky that I had my mum, because I think otherwise I probably, would have waited, or it might not have happened.
Yeah, and I just think that's fantastic. Last year I was at a conference, and one of the speakers was an 18-year-old multimillionaire in the tech industry, and I was looking after the speakers at this conference, and he said, I created my first business when I was still at school, a bit of wheeling and dealing at school, and then he came out obviously and was able to formalise it when he got over 16. And he's taken on a PA now, and he said we're two completely different generations. And he kind of felt, he said the same as, at first he had that, oh, I'm too young, will people take me seriously? But I think you just kind of have to work that little bit harder, because I landed my first EA to a CEO job at around 2021, and that was unheard of in the City of London back then. You just didn't hire someone that young to support at that level. And I remember I had to put in just that little bit of extra graft. So yeah, I've still got a lot to learn. I'm young, but I've been given this kind of job for a reason, or I've set up this business for a reason.
Yeah.
So how long has Lily Shippen been going now?
So it'll be 5 years in March.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I've known you for such a long time, but when did we meet? About 3 years ago via the Manchester PA Awards, I think it was.
Yeah. It's I can't believe that it's been 5 years, but I don't know where that time's gone. And it's weird to think that, I've now done this longer than I did work at Robert Walters, which that was always, and I think the same as you, if you'd have cut me open, I would have bled Robert Walters. And I think I always talk about it still, and it was so great. But yeah, it's crazy that it's been 5 years, and I think we launched in Manchester at the end of 2017, so 3 years in Manchester.
So you're obviously recruiting in our profession. What is it you love about our profession? I mean, there must be some kind of natural leaning or something that excites you about us. The fact that you've set up and your predominant market is with us. So what is it about us you love? I think what I'm trying to get at.
You know what? I think when I actually started the business, if I'm being completely honest, at Robert Walters, you were so focused on the numbers. It was all about the money. And I think that, that was, I suppose, my purpose at the time. And I think that actually having had the business and dealt with so many great people, that's it. It's really the people that we've met, and it's the relationships that I've built over the years. I'm friends with candidates now, and I'm friends with clients, and I think it's more the people that I've met and the journeys that they've been on, I just find really interesting. But equally, I think even in the last 12 months, I've become so much more passionate by doing things like the podcast, by having Ria support me, because actually I've been able to kind of practice what I preach in a way. And I think that it's, for me, I love working still those EA roles where it's, someone is a true extension of their boss, and I think that I've experienced that firsthand and know the impact that someone can bring. And you don't get people in a business that know so much as an EA does at the end of the day. And I think that the role is getting so much more interesting. Again, the salary survey that we did or that we're doing, it's so interesting to see that everyone is taking on more duties or more responsibility during this time. The role, I find it fascinating of where it's going. I think that, and that's something that's kind of grown over the last 5 years. But I think it's just to see people that are doing more project management, or they're making decisions, like they're doing so much more than I suppose some other people in businesses And I think a lot of the time we know that they just don't get that recognition. And for me it's about promoting those people and actually being a kind of ambassador, if you like, for the profession.
And like you said, I mean, you can practice what you preach because you've got that working relationship with the PA. And I haven't known Ria too long, but she's been absolutely fabulous so far. And I think she's a great extension of your brand already. I can see you two are going to be flying next year when things start picking up in a big way again and business is coming back. So
I think it's just great to have someone that complements you, you know, that she gets the way that I think and I get her. And I think also, you know, I have these ideas, but I'm not very good at kind of, you know, putting them into place a lot of the time, or, you know, sticking to deadlines. And also, I never would have imagined that, you know, it's interesting because we get so many business owners or entrepreneurs that come to us. They know they need help. They don't know what they need. And actually, it's been interesting because I think that was me. And I think that when I do that job spec, it's, you know, I had no idea really what I needed, but I knew that I needed help. And actually, she's grown that role herself, and she's able to kind of, you know, take those things off me to enable me to kind of do other things. It just works so well. And I think that made me realize, you know, it's why other EAs work so well with their bosses.
Yeah, definitely. So on to the recruitment market. And now you, like me, we know the good, bad and ugly of that industry, or this industry. And some PAs do have a bad time with recruiters, and some PAs are unrealistic with recruiters in terms of, you know, salary expectations, or I'm perfect for this role, but actually it's you that knows the client, and no, I know what they want personality wise, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Say a PA's had a really bad experience, it's knocked their confidence big time, and they're kind of, I'm not worthy of any job. I mean, if you've got any kind of top tips off the top of your head when they've had a really bad experience with a recruiter, because you and I know it does happen.
Yeah,
you know, I've dealt the nasty end of recruiters, even with me telling me to remove my awards off my CV because I'm too showy offy. Don't put this on, take that out. And it's all the important stuff that, you know, I know an employer would want to see, but if they've generally had a bad experience and they've been kind of put down in quite, what I would say is probably a little bit unprofessional, because there's ways of telling people you need perhaps do this, perhaps do that. Any kind of top tips there? Because I know this is on a lot of our members' minds with recruiters.
It's frustrating because I think that we do get a bad name, and unfortunately for reason a lot of the time. And some of the stories that we hear, you know, from people coming to us and they've been to other agencies, you know, it can be quite shocking. And you know, not to say that we're always perfect, because I'm sure that there are times where, you know, unfortunately, you know, there might be things where emails slip through the cracks or what have you. We try our best, I think, because we have the same values as people. I think that comes across in the way that the team are as recruiters. So I would say, in terms of tips, probably going after, you know, looking for recommendations, asking other PAs of good agencies and experiences that they have had. And I think that, you know, whilst it's good to register with sometimes multiple agencies, not going too much on the numbers game, because I think that's where it gets overwhelming. And I think it gets like you pulled from one agency to the next, and it becomes a competition sometimes, and you're the one that's stuck in the middle. So I think, you know, it would, in my experience, it you know, recommendations are always the best, and to see who has, you know, has had luck within and success using agencies, because some agencies have got, you know, certain, you know, they're stronger in certain sectors or industries than others are as well. So I'd say recommendations. I think that, you know, obviously I'm biased, but I think that small agencies, you know, if you can deal with a smaller agency, sometimes it, you know, I'm not saying that it always is better, but I think that you tend to get more, or I'd hope that you get more of a personable service than you would with a bigger agency. And that goes down to, you know, bigger agencies having large databases as opposed to small, and, you know, I'm assuming if it's the same as us, not having as large a database. But I think, you know, there should be recruiters out there that are open to giving advice. And I think if recruiters are open to giving advice and having a conversation, then, you know, hopefully they would be the better ones, rather than just asking for a job and, you know, calling you only when they've got a job to speak to you about.
Definitely. And I kind of, looking back at my career, even though I went to work for one of the world's largest agencies and I love my time there, I've spent most of the market when I've been job hunting seeking out the smaller agencies before the more personalised service. And yeah, you do get it from some recruiters at bigger agencies. You do. I mean, it's down to the individual recruiter. I know a couple of fantastic recruiters who were on the PA sec side at Hayes when I was there, who were absolutely brilliant. But it was sometimes hit and miss, I think, with the larger firms, definitely, and that was my own personal experience of it. So really a bit of a trickier question. I didn't warn you about this one, you might tell me off later, but obviously a recruiter puts a job out there tomorrow. You know, the current market, you're going to get absolutely divulged with CVs. I mean, it'll just be like whoosh, like it was at the start of the financial recession.
Yeah.
What are any kind of top tips on standing out? Because that advice can differ from agency to agency. And I think a lot of PAs, so I know one of our members by one agency in London was told, well, do this, this and this. So she did it. And another agency told her off for doing it. Now, I know there's not a one size fits all with CVs. And I'm trying to get EAs to brand themselves more and do what other professions are doing.
Yeah.
But what would catch your attention in terms of a really good candidate? And we're thinking up a mythical job here on kind of it. You put it out tomorrow, you get 500 CVs.
So I think for me personally, I'm guilty of, I was historically a temp recruiter, so I work really quickly. And that means that when I see a CV, I will scan through it. And then normally I will go straight to social media and look at their LinkedIn to basically make sure that it matches up to their CV. So I would always say, like, LinkedIn is, I cannot stress it enough. And I think that it is, most people are on LinkedIn now. I think 5 years ago, it wasn't as kind of popular. And, if I had a CV and I was kind of on the fence about it, and then I'd go onto LinkedIn and I couldn't find them, I'll be completely honest, I'd probably move on to the next, because if you had 500 CVs, it's a kind of, you've only got so much time. And then I think really it's, making sure that it's concise, but they're not too concise, because we all hear you've got to, so many people get told you've got to have a 2-page CV, you've got to squish it all in 2 pages, and then you've got one job that they've been in for someone's been in for 5 years, and they've only got one line of responsibilities, and like that's not, you're not able to sell yourself as much as you should be. So I think, I don't believe there's kind of, you have to stick to a certain amount, but equally not being 7-8 pages at the same time. So I think it's just making sure that, the most recent experience and the most relevant experience is highlighted. Key achievements are on there. The font is all is correct, and the spelling, I know it sounds so obvious, but we get so many that have got mistakes all over them.
Yeah.
That's just an immediate no, because obviously we've got to send that to a client, and we don't change CVs that we send to clients. So we would advise someone, but we wouldn't change it for them.
It's funny, just interrupting you there, Lynn. There was an employer that made the national press recently because he put a post up on LinkedIn about a role he had. This was only last month, and it wasn't, I don't think it was an EA role, but it was a role within the office in his company. And he said out of the first 100 CVs he had, I think it was something like 90% of them had typos in. And he literally discarded them. And he put this very public LinkedIn post up that made it onto BBC News and stuff, saying, how is it in this market where it's an absolute employer's market right now, and people aren't even bothering to check that, or getting a family member or friend to check it for you? I mean, that was the old rules when I came into the profession over 20 years ago. And it does happen because we get tired with technology, etc., etc. But he said he was just really, really shocked, and he come under some flack from people saying, well, people are stressed and they've got mental health problems. He said, but this is applying for a job. He said, we all have to put in a little bit of effort, as stressed out as you might be. And he was sympathetic to that, but he kind of had other recruiters and employers saying, the same things happen. And then you had a lot of people saying, be kind to people, be kind. But he's like, this is a job. I need to know people are up to a certain standard, otherwise I can't employ them. So the fact you've hit on that is, it's clearly a little bit of an issue at the moment.
I think what tends to happen is there's only ever slight errors, or there are there's some that in the minority that have got a lot of grammatical errors. But what tends to happen in my experience is, as you get to so because we all have our CV and then we go and update it, a lot of will have it in a different tense. So they'll have it as like my current role, and then they'll add on their most recent role, but not change the tense. And that to me is, and I'm not great at grammar at all. Maria has to check everything that I do, but I think it's just being aware of it and, like you say, getting someone to check it. And yeah, it is definitely an interesting one. And equally, I think that it can sometimes be a numbers game when people are applying to jobs, and I totally understand why, especially over this year, it has been the sheer panic of, you've got an application to get off and you need to get it off. But we get blank emails, no cover letter, just a CV attached, no subject in it. And so we would never ring someone that did that, because, we're going to prioritize the people that have taken the time and done that cover letter, which, the cover letter doesn't need to be really in depth, but I think as long as it's specific and it kind of is geared towards the job, then I think it just works a lot better.
And I think, when it's an employer's market like this, and like it would have been through the global financial recession and any other recessions that the country's been through over the decades, you do have to make that bit more effort, because you have got a lot of competition. You don't know what your competition's sending in. And so I think more now than ever, you have to really, and it is a pain. I mean, I've spoken to people, I'm spending hours filling in that application form, and there's not a lot else to do in lockdown, but you do have to make that bit extra effort when you're in an employer's market, and we are going to be in that for a little while longer, I think, at the moment, until the economy starts picking up again and vaccines, got out to more people, that kind of thing. So essentially, if we send you a box of brownies or a cake, could we get through to bribery and thief work?
I think Victoria and Emma would both be very receptive to that. But I think, to be honest, it's it goes down to, I know for the team that Victoria and Emma that are recruiting, if someone's polite and is own, then and wants to kind of know about a job, though I know for a fact that Victoria and Emma will always take the time to speak to someone. I think just I
think we've lost you there, Lily. I think you've frozen a bit.
We're back.
You're back now. Yeah, you're back. Okay. Fine.
It's I think brownies would definitely go down well, but I think that it's just about that nicely written email, I think, and that's the same for direct applications as well. I think there'll be a lot of companies hiring directly next year, and a lot of the time on LinkedIn you can see who that person is that's responsible, and I think an email going directly to them is a lot better than just an application on LinkedIn.
And the only reason I chucked that in is because I remember our MD for PA Sec back then at Hayes, he always used to tell the story about how somebody had sent him, and it's probably been done to death now because everybody knows about it. He got a CV sent with a tea bag stapled to it. Enjoy this cup of tea whilst you're reading my CV. And they didn't place this chap in that particular role, but they did manage to place him on that because he made an impact just with that tea bag. Yeah. I'm not suggesting you all start stapling tea bags and sending them to Lily. What's your favourite tea, by the way?
Biscuits.
I think, if I was still in recruitment, I'd definitely want chocolate or biscuits. But it is, it is harder to stand out at the moment. I know people are feeling despondent that they're kind of sitting there applying all day, every day, and not getting a lot back. Is it that it's just not, when you've got the volume of applications that are coming through for jobs in the UK at the moment, it's, as you said, you'll not even really look at those that have not made an effort. But do you give feedback to those that have made an effort, or is it kind of look, we've, because sometimes you get that automated email saying, sorry, you're not going to be put through. But does Lily Shippen offer something more personalised than that? Just saying, look, really sorry, but we'll keep you in mind.
Yeah. So, so we do. So our company policy, I suppose if you look at pre-COVID as well, and I'll explain why, but pre-COVID, our company policy was that if anyone came to us directly through the website, we would go back to them with a response. We cannot go back to every single person that applied directly to the website with, you need to do this or you need to do that. But if anyone emailed directly and asked for advice or asked for, specific feedback, then we would try and give it them. If it came through, from a job advert, so an Indeed or a Total Jobs, our company policy was that, and if they hadn't heard, they had been unsuccessful. But if someone called, we would say, email us directly and we'll come back to you. But we did have to put a disclaimer up, being totally transparent. We put that up in the pandemic because at the time there was only me working, and we went from having 5,000 views of our website a month to going up to 20,000, and we were dealing with that many applications that I couldn't keep up. So COVID's been we weren't able to go back to everyone, and that was a challenge and that was difficult. But one of the things that we've done is we've invested in a new CRM system to improve the candidate experience, so they're now able to see the application status, and we can actually go back to people with the roles on hold at the moment, or the roles doing this, the client, so we can go give those updates that everyone obviously wants. But that's only something that's recently come in, just because we didn't have the option before.
In all fairness, the big agencies wouldn't be able to get back to that amount of people either. It's just not possible, is it? Unfortunately, when it's that volume coming through.
No, we just have to use our discretion a lot of the time. And, if someone comes through from a referral or, as I say, directly, then, we will always go back to people. And for me, our reputation is so important. And I know it is the same for the team. But also, we had to we reached a point where we were saying we've got to prioritize business development, because otherwise we're not going to have any jobs to be able to speak to anyone about. So it's it's been challenging, but hopefully, we've been able to use the last quarter to really speak to a lot more people. We've got a really, I know Victoria's really reached out to a lot of people in London, so we're in a strong position to help those, going into next year.
Yeah, which is absolutely brilliant, and I think it's fantastic you brought her on board. I'm really looking forward to seeing you again in person. Victoria as well. She's got a better name. I'm just saying that. Yeah. Someone said peppermint tea on the dashboard. Yeah, I like a bit of peppermint tea, but I'm more of late, and especially with what we're churning through at EPAA at the moment, it's been strong coffee all the way.
Coffee.
Yeah, I know, literally just really good coffee. And I mean, you definitely have inspired me. I've been getting up earlier now and doing my exercise, and I always used to be like that when I worked in the city, and then I came out of it and you slip into bad habits. But I think you are right, it does really put you up for a really good day, and of energy and positivity and kind of driving forward. And that's what we're both trying to do at the moment with our businesses.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of obviously we've got we're in a partnership with you now, and we'll be working with you a lot over the coming years and promoting you. And actually, Lily, I don't know whether you saw, I forgot to text you and tell you, but our national conference went live about an hour before we came on. Yeah, and our emails inbox has been going crazy. We've got so about trying to deal with that, and I've been dipping in a little bit as well. But those of you will see, Lily is very much part of our conference. So Lily and I will be running a joint kind of career masterclass over breakfast, and between 7:30 and 8:30, for the first 50 people who sign up. So really looking forward to that. And I think by June, well, I say you should be able to give a bit more of a market update by then. We'll have come out of lockdown. We can talk about any survey results you've got back.
Yes.
And where there's some strong points in the market, and where we might need to tighten up as a profession as well.
Yeah, and we've got so we're doing on, I think it's the 19th of Jan, we've got the a webinar about the role of the evolving EA, and we've got that document that we will be making live to everyone. So I'll put that on LinkedIn, but that's around kind of what clients will be looking for as the role continues to evolve, and also what EAs are looking for as well. But yeah, really looking forward. It's going to be so nice to just be able to do things face to face rather than.
I know, I can't wait. I don't know about you, but I mean, I know a lot of our members are like, everyone's a little bit virtually tired now, aren't they? I mean, it's been fantastic. It's lovely learning about all the new technology, but just to be able to get everybody back in the same room again, in a Manchester hotel, you can't beat the energy. I mean, even as someone who speaks at a lot of events and trains EAs, you can't beat the energy that you get being in a room with people, and that you feel the same with candidates and clients.
Definitely.
So for next year, I'm really, really psyched for next year. I'm just like, come on, 2020, go.
That's the thing keeping me going at the moment. I think we're all as a team just like, we know it's going to be good. It's got to be better. And it even came up in Ria's mum's tarot card reading that she's going to be busy next year. So we're like, come on, it's got to be.
Oh, wow. Oh, I love a good tarot card reading.
Yeah. So I think it'll be just so nice to be face to face, and like you say, to have more of an update by then. Hopefully the vaccine will have got out to a lot more people. We'll be in a kind of we'll know more as well what's happening with Brexit, because that's still a thing, and that will have some impact. So by that point, we'll have just probably released our market update for the half year, so we'll be able to share. What
so the survey is live at the moment.
Yes.
When does that close?
So that closes next Friday, the 18th. The Sunday, the 20th.
And are you taking feedback from outside of London and Manchester as well?
Yeah.
So anywhere in the UK, anyone in our profession can complete that. So I'll pop the link in our Facebook group and put it in the newsletter as well.
That'd be great.
Before next week. Brilliant. Well, I've stolen nearly an hour of your time, Lily, but it's been so good to just see you on screen and also chat to you about some of what, the EPA members have been concerned about the market and what's going to happen and how do they get ahead and stuff. So it's been really great that you've shared some tips and been actually very honest with what the market's like at the moment, because I don't think people realise what it's like to be a recruiter, and you put that job out and within literally an hour you've got hundreds and hundreds of CVs, and I think you've answered that really honestly and just been realistic, which is appreciated, but what people can expect right now, rather than just sitting there going send. If anyone's contacting Lily, don't you dare send a CV over without a cover letter or message.
I've just said no, we won't even look at the mix. It's just
no agency has got the time for that at the moment, and it just kind of, if I was still at Hayes, we would have sat there and said, well, you've made absolutely no effort, you've it's just been a ping job. You've probably not even looked at what I do as a recruiter. So yeah, I know our recruiters at Hayes would have just put that to the side immediately. But it is an employer's market at the moment, and we do all have to work that little bit harder for the job hunt.
It'll be interesting to see, because it will probably shift, I reckon, next year as well, and it will probably become candidate-led again. It always does.
Yeah.
There have been a lot, we've got a role on at the moment, and I think the client said, there must be loads of people out there right now, and I think a lot of people have got job fatigue, hunting fatigue right now, and aren't necessarily looking, and it does shift so easily. And I do think next year, yes, it's tough for the market, but I think it will switch again into being candidate driven, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of that, because it was always that last year it was all around remote working and all those opportunities. What will it look like, next year?
Yeah, definitely. And that was my experience of 7.5 years in that industry. It was literally employers market, candidates market, and it was like that all the time, which was really interesting. I as always find the labour market really, really fascinating, and I can't help but still keep an eye on all that. I'm still quite wired into, well, I did have it for 7.5 years, so it's just a market that fascinates me, and what drives people and the statistics and all that good stuff. So lastly, before we sign off with you can see it's starting to get darker and darker and darker here. I shouldn't have sat near the window again. It's just that kind of fresh winter air. But what are you up to for Christmas? Are you keeping it low key?
Yes. So I'm not a massive Christmas person, I have to admit. So I am probably going to be just finishing off some of the projects. We've got something like going live at the start of Jan, but really excited about, but needs quite a lot of work. So probably will be working on that. And then just a lot of my friends coming home from London and seeing them, and just probably drinking too much again and eating far too much. But yeah, the usual, nothing too exciting, but
I think you've put the graft in on the exercise front to be able to enjoy yourself.
I've been very good recently. I make out like looks maybe on social media like I do loads, but actually there's a lot of days where I don't.
Yeah, and I think, well, actually, we've both got dogs. So on the days that I don't officially do my Davina McCall workouts, it's like, Rossi, you're going out for an extra long walk instead.
Yeah, that's the problem. Mine's become so spoiled over lockdown that he's so used. He looks at me first thing and thinks, we're going out this morning. Yeah. Whereas before it was always, because I was at work, I'd had the luxury of a dog walker, but I'm not allowing myself that now. So it is a good excuse to get out and get some fresh air.
Yeah, it is. It is, despite how cold it's got. And I shouldn't say that to anyone from the north, because it's a little bit colder up in the north. This week I've been like, I've got a dog and I have to walk it.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I hope you have a fantastic Christmas. I really wish you that, because I know how tough it's been for small businesses this year. And I think what you've done with your business, and especially as a recruiter, it's been different to others. And I think that's really come across on social media. And I'm really excited to be working with you next year. I'm excited to see you again in person. But for most of the members, we'll see you in Manchester in June, which we're very excited about. And we'll as I said, we'll post the survey in the Facebook group and out to the membership, and we'll look forward to seeing the results back from that. As always, I'm very fascinated to see what they have to say on that and what comes back.
Some interesting ones already, for sure. But thank you so much as well, and I really appreciate all of your support and everyone from EPAA. It genuinely does mean so much. So thank you.
Someone just said it's currently 4 degrees in Scotland. Okay, so you can't moan in the north. I'm not moaning down here in Surrey. No, well, it's fine here. It's a heat wave. And Josh said he can't wait to see us both at the conference. So we can't wait to see you either, Josh. It'll be brilliant. It'll be a fantastic conference. It really will. We'll put everything into it. I'm really looking forward to it. But I will let you get on now, Lily. Whatever you're doing, whether you're going back to work or going to sign up for the evening. I've got a mad conference inbox to help the ladies out with. But as I said, have a lovely Christmas and Happy New Year. And I'll see you in 2021.
See you in 2021. Thank you so much, Vic.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Bye.